All right then. So we are here for another round of AMP interviews. We are here with director Sareen Hairabedian. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If not, please correct me. And her upcoming documentary, My Sweet Land, is about to premiere at Sheffield DocFest on the 13th of June. And thanks again for taking time. And to start us off, I would like to start with a quote, which I think is a very famous one. I think it was Winston Churchill who said at one point that the first casualty of war is the truth. I hope it was Winston Churchill. But after having watched the film, shouldn't it be replaced by the first casualty of war is innocence?
Yeah. I think that is the core of the film and the core message of what My Sweet Land is really trying to portray. It's the rawest form of it's the rawest thing that can be lost in wars, and this is what we observe, and this is what we see in Vareja's story in My Sweet Land, and the way he grows up, and the responsibilities, the conversations, the realities that he starts taking in instead of just being the free, innocent child that he wants to be. And you see it not only through his gaze, but also it's seen around with his siblings, his younger brother, and also his classmates and his friends all around.
Throughout the documentary, we see many developments in his life, but also in his surroundings, in his family life. What was the original intention of the documentary? Because obviously you didn't think something like this would happen to the family, something like this would happen to him. What was the original intention of My Sweet Land?
Yeah, the original intention was it all started with a previous project that I had just finished, which was called We Are Not Done Yet. It was a short film I worked on for HBO, and it was a story about US veterans who come together to write poetry as means to process their traumas. So once the film was done, I, as an Armenian, really wanted to go to Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, and document the lives of children that are born into war, that are born into a war zone, that have no choice but to later on, at the age that permits them to become soldiers, obviously fight for the land because of the unrecognized status of Nagorno-Karabakh. So it was just a very natural instinct for me to want to be in a place that is very connected to my identity and to observe and document these children as they grow up. And, with time, I was able to decide on who was that child, who was the most comfortable to follow, and who was very comfortable with the camera. He had a lot to say about his life and the happenings around him. And then war happened. So I just stayed with the story with him and was able to, show his journey throughout the journey of Artsakh.
This actually you actually more or less already answered my third question. How did it take a lot of convincing for Frey and his family to take part in the documentary, or did you have your mind on, let's say, other families or other stories, or did you from the get-go said, all right, I want to tell his story?
Yeah, it was a process because the idea then was I had seen a photograph from a mass wedding that took place in Artsakh in 2008, where 700 couples got married in one day, and then they had children. So it was 10 years after that, in 2018, when I wanted to go and follow these children or meet these children. So I did visit many families, around 30 families in Artsakh from different villages and towns. And then I ended up following 3 different families for a year. And then throughout the year, my relationship with Vrej and his family became stronger, and there was a lot of trust built between us. And that's when I decided that it will be best for the story and the story of Artsakh. I will give it more justice if I follow one child and really be able to tell his journey. So it wasn't much about convincing. It was more about patience and time and trust and relationship building. And it's a relationship we still have together. I call them every other day. We become very close families. So yeah, that's how it all unveiled.
Before we come back to the family and their story, since your documentary is called My Sweet Land, I have to talk about, for somebody who has never been to Armenia, can you tell me something about the beauty of the land, the beauty of Artsakh and Armenia, and how did you capture it in your documentary?
Yeah, I mean, I always say it is a contested land because it looks majestic and it's like heavenly, you know? I mean, symbolically, I think everybody wants to be there. It's a space, the mountains, the lavish the greenery, the valleys and the lakes and it's just really like it's a land that just breathes beauty. But beyond that, I think because of its contested status, there has been so much love given to the land. And these families, especially when you see Varej's family in the film, it is, you know, through the land they live, they give it and they take back from it. And, you know, it is the place where their ancestors, their grandfathers, their fathers had fought and died for the land. So that same cycle is what actually nourishes them. So with that, I would say, you know, the mountains, the stoic presence of the mountains is connected also with like the stoic personalities that you meet when you go to meet the people there. But yeah, it's just a beautiful landscape that unfortunately is lost right now because since September, the Armenians were forcefully exiled from the land. So yeah, I hope I give you an answer of how to visualize it.
I was also quite taken with, I hope I don't mess up the pronunciation with Resh, and for lack of a better word, protagonist he is. He reminded me a lot of the boy in Germany, Year Zero by Rossellini, or for example, the many children protagonists that you have in Abbas Kiarostami's film, for example, Where is the Friend's House? What kind of personality is he? Because he seems to be a a boy at the same time, even though he says things that are very adult.
Yeah, I think you cut off a little bit there, so I wasn't able to fully hear you. But I think what I understand, you're asking what kind of a personality he is. He seems like a boy, not an adult. Yes, he's much older than his age, which is also what really attracted me to film him because he would say what's in his mind. He absorbed a lot, and especially during the war, he was absorbing his surroundings, absorbing what his parents were talking about, what the TV was telling him, what the news was announcing. So he's the type, from what I can tell. Obviously, they change a lot at this age because it's, going into teenagehood and then adulthood. But he was a sponge that was filled with love. and he was also in a way absorbing what the adults would do and tell, and he would find his own version of putting that out. He was, always looking for play at the same time, and I think that's very important to also show in the film, because pieces of his childhood are still there. But I think what attracted me most to his personality was, how his brain functioned, and he was constantly telling me things that kept me wanting to follow him more. He was, in a way, leading his ideas and allowing me to just keep filming, because there was always more that he would want to tell and say. Yeah.
To be quite frank with you, when I watched the documentary, I had never heard of that conflict that you were portraying, because, at least to my knowledge, it doesn't play a big role. It didn't play a big role in Western media. According to you, what gets lost for people when these sort of conflicts are not being reported on? They are not in the focus, and they are, to be quite blunt, they are swept under the rug.
Yeah, I think I'm always looking at these spaces from a human lens, and I think it's very important that we treat regions, especially like this, that is pretty much unknown to the world, with the same attention. I think that we treat other regions that have been, whether it's on the cinema map or the news or the headlines, because these are also smaller regions that also are key players in the geopolitics of the whole region. I don't want to get into politics much, but I think from a humanitarian lens, it is important that these stories get the same weight and the same attention. It's, at the end of the day, it's humans suffering because of wars and what wars do to people. And losing such stories allows for more stories to happen like that, and allows, there's so many other regions that are struggling with these same geopolitical conflicts, and people there that are, have lived their lives just through generations and cycles of trauma. So if we want to become, I think, a better community, a better town, a better entity as a whole, we need to focus on, I think, we need to have space to watch and to listen to all stories, and even if it's stories that are coming from regions that you've barely heard about.
I'm not sure if that has taken place, but has Raish and his family, have they seen the documentary? And if so, what were their reactions? And as a second part of that question, now that he is 15, when he looks back at his 4-year younger self, does he say that, is he rather critical of himself?
Ruben, sorry, there's something in the connection. I heard the first part of the question, if they've seen the film, but I didn't hear the second, where you say now that he's 15.
Now that he's 15, when he looks back at his 11-year younger self, what does he think of himself seeing in the camera?
Yeah. So it was very, very, very important for me and my team that the family watches the film before it goes out into the world. So we did arrange a very intimate screening in their home in Armenia, where they are now, and projected the film, and we were present there via Zoom with them. It was a very, very nerve-wracking moment for me, because it's, work of 6 years, and obviously their life of 5 years has been shrunk into 86 minutes. So it's not an easy thing for them to watch, and it's something we don't take lightly at all. So watching the film has a very specific effect now on them, because the land is also gone. they're not in their homes, they're not with their land. So it was both, in a way, you know, a collage of spaces and memories that existed for them that is something that they don't have access to anymore, that held a very specific value for them when they were watching. But also they felt that they felt like everything they saw was very familiar to them. They didn't feel like they were not shocked by anything that was filmed, that, because we were always also in conversation about, what we're filming, and I was never filming against their will or anything like that. So it felt to them that everything was a joy for them, really, to watch their life. They were also very thankful that happened to be, their story that was documented. And surprisingly, they felt that it wasn't as intense as they thought it would be. And we had a little bit of a talk about that. And I think the conversation there was that the reality itself was so harsh, when what they lived through was so harsh, that they felt that the film was on a lighter note. And I think that's also because it was filmed from Barej's perspective. And, bringing a child's voice and experience can take a little bit of that high intensity of the realities of war a bit away, directly. So and then your second question about how Barej felt about it. He's 15 now. He was affected by it very much, and he didn't have a lot to say. He said he really liked it, and he was very happy that we had made this film about him.
As a sort of last question, I hope the connection doesn't break up again. When your film has its world premiere on June the 13th at Sheffield DocFest, and I'm guessing it goes on many other festivals also, what do you hope the audience will take away from it?
I think what I want the audience to take away from it is actually multiple things. I think one is to remember that beyond headlines of news that happen frequently and quickly, and then, we lose the news and we move on to the next one and the next one, especially at a time where, our social media is filled with breaking news every hour. It's important for me that the audience realizes and really empathizes with these spaces where there are humans living behind these war zones, and these people have lives, and they live and they laugh and they fight, and the cycle continues. And I think to humanize these experiences, from the youngest of that family to the oldest, is something I want the audience to really think about and process, and take with them. I also want, obviously, the story of Artsakh to stay alive, especially at a time where it, ceases to exist, and to continue to tell stories of people who loved and lived and, gave so much to the land.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do the interview, and all the best of luck for this project, that it gets the reaction that you were just describing, and obviously all the best of luck for all your future endeavors and projects.
Thank you so much, Ruben, for your time and for your questions.